Welcome to Agents Growth Academy. I am your headmaster, Jim Schubert. I hope you are ready to grow big or go home. Today, I've got Will Lemanski, who is going to chat with us about how to run a lean agency machine. Before I get into his bio, I want to talk about a couple things that help our agency run really lean. Number one, you've heard me talk about it a lot, but ePay policy. They are our simplest solution to collect credit card and ACH payments. We used to just have an awful time trying to send checks or rather get checks in the door. Mail is getting lost for our agency. I don't know if it's the same for yours, but it's getting lost more and more frequently or taking probably 3 times as long as it used to. So we had to find a solution that was an easy way to collect. So we just send our clients a link. They can use a credit card, ACH. Boom, we reduced our time for collecting agency receivables from 7 days to about less than 24 hours, which in Boston, we would say that is wicked fast. Also want to give a shout out to MarbleBox. They are our virtual insurance processing team. We've actually just added our second quote unquote MarbleBox employee who we outsource everything from agency bill transacting to downloads for our carriers into our system to all kinds of things that just help speed things up for the rest of our team so that our licensed agents, which are most of our employees and the people with those letters after their names, aren't doing the lower value tasks that don't add any value to the client and agent relationship. So MarbleBox, check them out at marblebox.com. ePay policy, there should be a link wherever you're listening to this or watching this. So Will Lemanski, let's chat about him for a second. He is a 4th generation agent, been in business since 2002, almost about the same time when I came around. 5 years as a claims rep handling property, liability, auto claims. Became an agent in 2006. He bought the agency in 2012 with his wife. God, you're a brave man. Since then, he's almost tripled the agency revenue in 3 years. They're heavily involved in state and national Big I Association, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. And I know we're going to talk about the fact that they were a best practices agency and have been since 2016. He's gone from sitting in a computer with a phone and being told to sell to managing producers, running an agency, and making it as efficient as possible. What interests him now is finding ways to run the agency more efficiently and maximizing everything, ergo that lean agency machine. Will Lemanski, what's going on, my friend?
How we doing? Thanks, Jim.
Yeah. What are you up to these days besides trying to run a lean agency? What are you doing in your free time?
Oh, free
Do you
time?
have any free time?
Exactly. I know. Like, you go home and it's just like try not to pay attention to the 1,000 emails you get, and maybe
Oh,
get like an hour to like zone out on YouTube or something like that, I suppose. But
yeah,
it's
there you
uh, it's tough.
go. Well, I'm super excited to find out what you mean by running a lean agency machine. And I'm curious to hear a little bit about this best practices thing too. Does that kind of correlate? What's going on there?
Yeah. So my wife and I bought the agency from my uncle and his business partner in 2012. So we're about 11 years in, and
Yeah.
those first 2 years, you're just basically like, I don't know really what I'm doing. Um, you're just doing what has been done before, and maybe every year trying to do a couple things better. And as kind of the dust settled, maybe after 3, 4 years in, you're like, all right, we got this capital here. We can pay for the bills. We're
Mm,
not going bankrupt. What are we doing? And
yeah.
and are we doing things right? Am I not? And I just started. So we've been heavily involved in our state association, the Big Eyes. So we just know a lot of people, know
Yeah.
a lot of people who run agencies for a long time and are very successful. And I just started asking them, like, how much capital do you keep in? Do you
Yeah.
keep in 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months?
Yeah.
I don't know. My uncle, who we bought the agency from, is crazy conservative with that. I mean, I could have $1 million sitting in the bank and he'd be like, Will, you got to watch it. You got a rainy day coming. I mean, that's just how he is.
Yeah.
So I kind of have that in the back of my head. But we started asking some of those people, and they would reference, well, best practices says such and such. And I'm like, well,
Mm.
what the heck does that mean?
Yeah.
And I learned that they every 3 years they have this program that you submit all your financials, and they use that to benchmark and compare you in different revenue categories to
Yep.
different agents across the U.S. And yeah, we got it in 2016, and you keep that designation every 3 years. And we just got it for the third time. But beyond just getting the designation, which I think you probably have to hit certain criteria and benchmarks to get the designation,
Sure.
it just helped me learn, like, are we doing things right? And once I got my feet wet with that, then I was like, well, why the hell are we holding 6 months of liquid capital here doing nothing?
Yeah.
So, let's use that to pay things off, and
Mm.
et cetera. And that's like I had mentioned to you before, like, honestly, paying everything off and having like no debt has probably been one of my biggest goals in life, besides just selling insurance for the last 5 years.
Yeah. Tell us what kinds of things you paid off that made you feel a whole lot better about yourself.
Yeah. So when we bought the agency, there was my uncle and his business partner, and they signed a 5 year consulting agreement, which was probably 3 years too long. And the one partner passed away 2 years in.
Mm.
So when that happened, it kind of catapulted us to buying the office building.
Mm.
And so my uncle, and we're dealing with his estate and all this, we bought the office building.
Yeah.
And once that happened, then I'm like, all right, well, this is great. And if you've ever dealt with commercial loans, it's like night and day to residential loans. Like, you could
Oh
be
yeah.
like, hey, I make 100 grand. Here's a $600,000 house.
Yeah.
But if it's a commercial loan, you're like, hey, I want to have $100,000 and I have, $500,000 sitting in the bank. They're like, hold on a second. Let's
Yeah.
just review this a bit more. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm just reviewing this going like, we got to pay this damn thing off.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, let's just hammer the heck out of this thing. And once that got done, I moved to, that was the first kind of domino that fell.
Yeah.
And paying off the office building that we own and have tenants at, it was great.
And
So
then you had extra capital at your disposal. So what do you do with that?
yeah, well, with that one, we lumped it to the other note, and paid off the business partner's estate that passed away.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, like, it's kind of like, I guess there's a couple of things. Why pay everything off? And aside from just my personal financials, that people don't care about, I mean, what can you do with that? I mean, I think what a lot of the business owners who I talked to said was, you run your agency differently when it's paid off.
Mm.
And I kind of thought about that, like, what you do, not that you're afraid, but when you start off as an insurance agent and you lose that account and you think you're going bankrupt and oh my God, I'm the worst person ever. As time goes on, that kind of fades away. And because you have more accounts and it doesn't sting as much, it still does, but it doesn't keep you up at night maybe.
Sure.
And I think that's the one big thing for me is maybe removing the fear of failure, I suppose.
It's a mindset shift.
Yeah, and I think what happens is it's almost, to me, it's like freedom.
Yeah.
And I love that feeling of being able to do what we want to do with it. And we have long-term goals of, once certain things have been paid off, we expanded our employee benefits. We did that. I'd love to do more things. We're actually, this is kind of funny, but we just bought a massive massage chair that we're bringing into the office, being delivered on Monday. And I'm not talking like, hey, this little thing you get from Costco that you throw over the thing. This is a friggin' massage chair. That's like, we got a room back here that we're dimming the lights, and everybody, if you want to.
And you're getting certified right now to be a masseuse. Is that what I'm hearing?
in a non-creepy way, yeah. And and we're gonna be like, hey, if somebody wants to take a 10-minute break once a day and go and hit the massage chair and shut the door,
Yeah,
have at it. So
that's
like
phenomenal.
we would not have done that year one where you're like, oh my God, the E&O is coming up. It's such
Yeah,
a month and we gotta have the capital,
yeah,
So I just see a lot of that happening as time goes on where we have the um, capability to do more things that we want to do.
that's awesome. I love to hear that you're putting freed up capital back into your most valuable resource for any of us, which is our people, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you and I were talking a little bit about that off mic, about little things that I think we as owners sometimes feel like, oh, whatever, the gift card, does that really matter? Do we need to, have, an employee appreciation brunch or whatever it is? But actually, yeah, you do. And I've told, as I said to you off mic, we've done polls to our staff, or we've just have our managers kind of like casually talk to our staff. And at the end of the day, that's the stuff that they actually really value, right? It's more than
Yeah,
just coming to work and doing their job. They want to feel in some sense like they belong. Is that kind of
yeah,
what you feel too?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I get stuck in the rut of living in my own little world of emails and
Yep.
client issues, and I mean, my wife who runs the office does the marketing. She does a good job of always reminding me, go around and talk to people, Will. So I will physically do that a
Yeah.
couple times a day where I'll just walk up there and just say, how's it going? And
Yeah.
pretty much every single time they're like, hey, I got a question. And it's just
Yeah.
that availability that they don't think, hey, it's the grumpy guy in the back,
Yeah.
not coming out.
Yeah.
One of the best managers I ever had, I remember I worked for a large regional insurance carrier and he was the regional vice president. So he was like my boss's boss's boss or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and he must have overseen 150 people too. I'm guessing,
Wow.
but he would walk around every single morning and say good morning. And
Yep.
like, I was like a 24-year-old kid, and I always used to think that was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
And just a simple little thing like that. And he was probably going around to see who was there at 8 o'clock. But you know,
Managing by walking around, right?
I was always there, and he'd be like, "Where's
Yeah.
this person?" I'm like, "I don't know,"
Yeah.
but
But
yeah,
it sounds like it made you feel in some sense like you belonged, like you mattered. The fact that he
yeah,
came by and even poked his head in to say hi to you. I think everybody needs to rewind the podcast at this point and just listen to that, because I think that we can talk about money and getting lean and running an efficient agency. But at the end of the day, if we can't do things that help our people feel like they truly belong, then we're missing out.
yeah.
One of the things I heard you say before, you used the word freedom, and it made me think, do you know James Jenkins?
No,
Okay, you need to know James Jenkins. He was on my podcast, probably episode like, I don't know, 6, 7, something like that, early on, and he and I have become friends. And he has a podcast of his own called Agency Freedom, and his podcast focuses. And by the way, everybody who's listening to this, you guys should check this out. Agency Freedom podcast. James Jenkins. You were mentioning Jason Cass off air. So Jason has kind of a consortium of podcasts that and James is one of his. But James, his whole podcast focuses on agency owners who are making the leap from captive to independent. So it's literally this concept of becoming free. That's why it's called Agency Freedom Podcast.
yeah,
But it's funny because I heard you say, yeah, when you're able to pay this stuff off and it's no longer a burden, you really do feel like you're free and you can do kind of whatever you want. Is there anything else that you feel like that gave you the freedom to do, or that you could do whatever you want now? And what does that look like?
yeah. I just think it's honestly so like I think when we bought the agency, the one owner passed away. It just I don't know. It just took a few years to feel it was ours. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when my uncle, about 3 or 4 years in, really was like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna be out of here," it was almost like I don't know. Once he left, then I felt like really it was ours, and like absolutely no disrespect to him,
Yeah.
but it was he was always kind of there. So it's always like, well, if I don't know what I'm doing, I got to go ask, Uncle Bob. And
Yeah.
now it's like, well, it's kind of up to you. And it's not that he doesn't care what we're doing, but like it's ours to succeed or fail on our own merits. So
Yeah.
I guess for me, that was it. And I think for me mentally now, paying it off is kind of that next thing where you really feel that it's yours.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think you said it on the show so far, but I know off mic you were telling me that one of the things you wanted to do with additional capital that you could free up was to be able to give to a charity that you guys already give to. You want to tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about that?
So one thing we started maybe, and this is part of, we pay off the building and the one note on the other owner.
Yeah.
You know, every month we do $500 to local charities called ML&L Cares, and a lot of other agencies do similar things like that.
Yeah.
But it's an intentional contribution to the local charity. Sometimes we know who it is, or like a client refers them, or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'd love to expand that to 750, 1,000, 1,500, whatever the heck it
I
is in the
love it.
future. That like you're doing things like that in the community. And one cool thing we did, we talked about how people like to feel appreciated.
Yeah.
It's not me making the decision anymore. So we have a
Mm.
committee in the office that
Ah.
comes up with the ideas. So I'm just like, run with it, guys. You got
Mm.
$500 a month. We'll cash the check or whatever, or not cash the check. We'll get the
Yeah.
check out. But
Yeah.
they're coming up with ideas that they want and sending it off, and kind of empowered there too. So
Oh, I love that. I'm gonna have to steal that idea. We give to one charity, the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, because we've got a connection with another agency owner whose daughter has CF. But I've thought over the years that it would be nice to be able to expand that. So I'm gonna have to steal that
And
idea
the
of
one thing we do, like,
creating.
if you want to come at it from a standpoint of a business-minded person,
Yeah.
it's advertising.
Yeah.
I mean, every time we do it, we go out there that we have a big check, we put it on our social media. Um, I bring it up to existing clients. Hey, if you know of anybody. So it's just, I don't know. It's another way to advertise and throw our name out there. You're either going to spend as far as $6,000 a year. You could spend that, I guess, once a month on a billboard somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But are you going to get more traction from somebody seeing that you gave to the local humane society or food kitchen or whatever,
Yeah.
or posting your name on a billboard somewhere? So it can kind of be seen that way too, if you're coming at it from a ruthless business mind.
No, it makes sense, and I mean, it helps everyone, right?
Yeah,
Uh, no matter where you're coming from on this, it's certainly helping. I'm curious, do you go out with the big cardboard check?
we do. I mean, it's not me all the time, but
Yeah.
we have. And I don't know, it's just little. I don't know. Like we had a couple cool stories. We had this one individual that we got to know, and I got to know through some different networking groups. And his son had passed away, and he does a kickball tournament every year in his
Mm,
memory. And he wanted to be a police officer, and so like the money they raise, I think it's like a scholarship fund for it goes to like kids that want to be in law enforcement.
okay.
And so we donated that, and like, dude, every other Sunday, this guy sees me in Myers still when I go grocery shopping. And
Yeah.
he's just like waving at me, and he still remembers me, and we'll talk. And so, I mean, just things like that. We had another customer, a friend of a friend that we know, that her son died in a tragic car accident a couple years ago. She's setting
Mm,
up a foundation as a name that'll go in for next year. Just little feel good things like that. So
yeah,
just so
that's
many
awesome.
so many different stories, right? And you can learn so many things from different people. Um, just getting out and chatting people about their charities. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. The stories, it's something I'm big on. I'm writing a book about storytelling in business right now. And
Yeah.
that is the one thing that is, I think, enables people to have more influence than anything else is through storytelling.
Oh,
It,
absolutely.
as a recovering claims man, I bet you have some stories.
Dude, that when you said storytelling, I'm like, that's how I sell. I love telling stories, and I tell people stories of claims all the time. Like that's how I sell. I'm a claims guy, and I yeah, that's me to a T.
Do you have a couple go to stories that anything you want to share now?
Oh man,
Put you on the spot.
real easy water backup claims.
Yeah.
We had this lady who was in Detroit area, and she had a Pepsi basement. Man, everything was Pepsi. The bar was Pepsi. Pepsi logos, Pepsi wallpaper, everything Pepsi. And I remember she had $5,000 of coverage for water backup, and the
Oh,
water came up a certain amount, and this lady was like crying. And I
oh,
still remember this day, Pepsi basement. And so like if I'm talking to somebody, I'm like, man, years back we had this lady that had a Pepsi basement. I mean, I don't know, it's just and it was I don't know why, but that sticks out to me, and I
yeah.
tell that story. On the liability end too, I just have I had a case years ago where there was a dentist and his daughter was 16 driving drunk and crossed the median line and hit and killed somebody.
Oh,
Yeah, and the dentist had now this is like 20 years ago, right?
yeah,
But the dentist had like oh god, it was like $100,000 of liability, and it was like 100 or 250, something insanely low.
yeah.
Well, I was the claim rep defending the dentist, right?
Right.
And I remember the other attorney firm is like, we know this guy's got money, we're going after him.
Yeah.
And so I tell that story to people to say like, sometimes people think that, oh, well, they're just going to go after insurance. They're going to stop right there. No, they
No.
will not.
No.
So I remember the story of the dentist and talking to that guy, and yeah, he was sweating. He was sweating bullets for about 3 years.
Yeah. And how I like it the the small cost that it would take to bring that up to 500 or a million or even
Yep.
out an umbrella, like holy cow.
One of the
Yeah.
other stories is you're telling. I won't tell claim stories all day, but
No, it's
I've
good.
told a lot of people this. You want to know why you buy an umbrella or you get higher limits? Because if something happens, what kind of attorney are they getting if they know that they got a 5 million exposure?
Yeah.
Oh, they're gonna hire the best of the best. I can guarantee you that.
Yep.
If you got a
Yep.
100,000 limits, you know what they're gonna get? We'll go to House Counsel on this one, who's got overloaded with cases, and that happens a ton.
Yeah. Sheesh.
You know?
Before we jump into the rapid fire round, we could sit here and tell stories all day. I love it.
It's good stuff.
Anything else you want to share with us in terms of how you've made your agency more efficient and, um, maximizing everything as we talked about at the beginning?
Yeah, I just say we're a numbers based industry, so always know your numbers.
Yeah.
And you know, figure out what your revenue per employee is. And
That's a
if
big one.
your revenue per employee is low, we'll chat with somebody that's a higher. I mean, maybe it's just the state they're in. Maybe it's the accounts they write, but you're not going to get from 100,000 per employee to 200,000 employee overnight. So
Right.
what two things can you do this year to get there?
Yeah.
And you know, maybe does your CSRs doing enough?
Yeah.
You know, maybe they aren't. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it just comes down to is you got to be scientific about it. And I think what I mentioned to you earlier that we were lucky that we never inherited an agency that had too many people. So
Yeah.
we've just slowly grown, and we've never like gone out there and hired four different people when we didn't need to.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, that's you know that I don't say it's burned us, but you know we've had to bust our ass at times trying to
Yeah.
get things done
Yeah.
where we don't have too many people in the office to get it done, but our numbers look good. So there's always a yin and yang to that, I guess.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And even more so, when you have a smaller agency, becoming a masseuse, is is critical.
Yeah,
to be to
I
be
know. Well, I made a joke to people. I'm like, clothes have to stay on. Like we're not gonna like walk past the room and like knock
have you
and
have you gotten with your EPLI carrier yet, just to alert them as to what's about to happen?
exactly. Yes, precisely.
Phenomenal. Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, let's get into the rapid fire round. If there's anything else you want to share after that, you're welcome to. But I'd
Sure.
love to know what one piece of technology or software that you can't live without is.
A few years ago, we got Pipedrive and something similar to that, like a CRM that tells who you're working on and at what point in time. Because
Ooh.
man, there's just you when you got like 30 balls up in the air and you're trying to
Yep.
juggle them all, you forget that you talked to Jim Smith 3 weeks ago about a life policy. How do So how do you remember that and
Yeah.
keeping it all in one place where you can easily like be like, oh yeah, I got to call that person back. Um, that for sure is probably been the best.
Yeah. And most agency management systems are actually not CRMs. A lot of people don't understand that. I am currently evaluating CRM, so this is pretty timely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so critical. That's good to know. And you feel like that's been another secret to your success for becoming more efficient?
Oh, absolutely. For producers, I wish I had that when I started. I mean, I had like Word documents for X dates. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So like, just that. I mean, and
Hey, at
that
least it
program.
wasn't a T file.
No, and I still like have them saved in my file. I'm like, 2004, or no, I came here 2006. It was like 2008. I talked to somebody in January, and I've got all these messages, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's like 15-year-old file or something.
That's awesome. What's one book you've read recently or reading now or love and want to share with the audience?
Yeah. So as you were talking, it's called "Never Split the Difference" by Chris Voss.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
so, dude, one thing I learned from that is I am a horrible listener, and I need to listen better. But we all know how to do it, but we don't do it. It's just like it just, and you've been in that situation where somebody's like, hey, my daughter-in-law is going to college, and then you suddenly think to myself, I went to college, I went here and did such and such. It's like, no, listen to the person,
Yeah.
like ask them questions about it,
Yeah.
like, and we do that with our clients. Like our
Yeah.
clients don't care that I went to a football game last weekend. They want us to ask about them.
Yeah. That's
And
true.
it is so difficult to do that. And I constantly, all the time, I'm checking myself like, stop talking about yourself, Will. Listen to these people. But seriously, like, you do that in new client meetings and networking opportunities and things like that. People will love you if you listen to them and are actively listening. And it's easier said than done, but
I'm
that's why I love
sensing
it.
that this is probably the secret to your marriage and why you and your wife are together, because she strikes me, just from what you've told me, as being the person who listens more more naturally, right?
Well, yeah, no, I'd say I'd say I'm the more the analytical,
Yeah.
dorky, like numbers guy.
Yeah.
You put Lisa in a room and everybody's gonna love her and she's gonna talk to people and I'm just kind of like sitting there going like, oh my God, I'm so tired of talking to people. I just want to go back and drink a bourbon and go to bed. That's just me.
You had me
But
at bourbon, by the way. Yeah.
yeah, oh man, I that's a rabbit hole we
we
can go down.
we get a whole nother podcast episode on bourbon.
Yep.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, that book is absolutely phenomenal. I actually recently gave it to my wife to read because she was exasperated with our 11-year-old daughter, who is probably, I love her to death, but if you say white, she says black. If you say, go, she says stop. It's like everything is a negotiation or an argument, and she said, Jim, I don't understand how you're able to kind of get through to her. And I said, well, number one, I'm not her mom, and the two of you butt heads, because mother daughter. I said, but also, I told you about this book I read. Honestly, you really need to read it. And so she started reading it. Um, Funny story. Chris was actually, I discovered this because I was reading it last summer when I was up in Rhode Island, and my brother-in-law lives up there in Newport. And I was telling him about it, and he was like, Jim, remember I went to Georgetown for grad school. He's like, Chris was one of my professors. I was like, no way. Can you help me get him on the show? So still working on that. But yeah, phenomenal book.
I love the story of how he talks about how the one husband went to this like retreat with his wife, and he was, I forget the term, but all he was doing, he was mirroring. He was asking people questions and like asking them questions when they said something like, you know, hey, I had a great night out. They're like, you had a great night out? And he didn't say anything about himself the whole time.
Yep.
And everybody afterwards told the wife, like, your husband is the greatest person I've ever met. I know him so well. And he didn't say a lick about himself. It's true.
It is. It's true. So, but most of us don't think that way, right? So that's why he wrote the book. Where you are not alone in being the person that has to remind yourself to not talk and to listen. So totally understand. Great book suggestion. What advice would you give to your younger self, Will?
And I would say find some good, well, yeah, I think about that. Like, I think you become the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
And like, that's one of the things, reasons why I got involved in the associations, because I wanted to find mentors and people who have been around and run successful agencies and I can go to, and they can kind of mentor me. And I found some of those people. My uncle's one of them for sure. But other people that I can lean on and ask questions. And once you get to know them, you know, they're not, I don't know. I think there's a lot of people in this world that don't have your best interests. And it's not that they're out for you, but they don't care about you.
Yeah.
So find, you know, the mentors who can mentor you in the right way and people who you want to emulate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And surround yourself with good people, because, you know, they say you become the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that's one thing that just having this podcast in the last year it's completely opened up my world. I mean, we're over 70 episodes in at this point, and I have made some of the most genuine relationships on mic and off, just from, you know, people asking me questions or me reaching out to other people that my guests recommend me talk to. And one thing I'll say, and I know you know this, our industry as a whole, especially in the independent side, I think is probably one of the most giving, selfless industries there is when it comes to mentoring, helping other people who are, you know, trying to come up and do the same thing. And it's awesome to me to hear that you've had that experience, not only in your family, but outside your family as well. Yeah. That's awesome. Good advice, sir.
Hey.
All right. Quick question for you. If, you know, so you're in Michigan, right?
Yep.
A little chilly there, I presume. You're wearing a sweater, a puffer. It's puffer vest season. I had mine on before, but I'm in Georgia, so it got hot. If you had the choice between eating a delicious hot bowl of soup or some gourmet marshmallows and hot chocolate, what would it be? Soup or hot chocolate marshmallows?
Soup. I'm not much of a sweets guy, so I like to tell people I drink my carbs. I try not to eat them.
So. Going back to bourbon, yes.
Yeah.
So what kind of soup would be your go-to?
Oh man, honestly, I'm like a chili kind of guy, man, and I know I'm a big like barbecue, like smoked meats and stuff like that, and follow a lot of things online, and I not that I don't mind the Texas chili with no beans, but I'm a beans my chili kind of guy.
Love it. So the hearty stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I know they don't make chili, but I'm going to send you some soup, and I'll find out from you off mic. But I love sending my guest a package from Spoonful of Comfort, which we've sent to a lot of our guests and,
cool.
and given to our employees, and they love it. So I'll find out what's a good substitute for chili off mic. You're not the first person to say that too. That's awesome. So I guess the last thing I'd ask is, what's one final piece of advice or actionable step based on what we've talked about here today?
Oh man, um, a couple things. I heard this at a conference I just went to recently. Don't compare yourself to other agents.
Yeah.
Don't compare yourself to other people. And it's easier said than done. But I think we all just in the social media world get into you see someone doing this or somebody gets an
Yeah.
award and you kind of feel that you're inferior. Oh, I had a down week, and like that's all garbage. Like throw it out of your
Yeah.
mind. It's not going to help you at all. And I think that's the difficult thing. We in sales and in this world, have to constantly motivate yourself, and I struggle with that all the time too. You
Yeah.
have a great day, and you feel you're on top of the world. Next day, it's a horrible day. You think you're the worst agent ever, and you just every day try and get a little bit better. I guess that's
Yeah.
all I'd have to say.
Yeah.
And easier said than done, but just you don't have to get a lot greater. Just get a little bit.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. We have a rule in our agency, the 24-hour rule. You got 24 hours to celebrate your successes and 24 hours to wallow in your defeats. After that, you get back on the horse and you go.
No, it's true. That's great advice.
Yeah. Love it. Fantastic. Will, if people want to get more Will Lemanski in their lives, where can they connect with you?
Oh God. Uh, Will at mllins.com. You know, um, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, all that fun stuff. So, but yeah, email's cool. 517-351-9117 is the number.
Sweet.
But yeah,
Also, if you're looking for a good masseuse, that's the number you call.
precisely. Yeah, yeah. You stop by the office, maybe throw a little 15-minute massage session online on here for you. Why not?
I'm never gonna forget that, man. You're always you will always be the masseuse to me now.
It's gonna be weird. We're gonna be like, it's like right off the copy machine, and we're gonna be back there like scanning something in, and like hear this like, oh, what the hell's going
Fantastic. I love it. Will, this has been a fun episode, my friend. I appreciate you spending time with me and the audience today.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, absolutely. You stick around for me, but everybody else, until next time, grow big or go home.